Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the April 24th, 2013 Pittsburgh Board of Public Education Legislative Meeting. Before we begin this evening, I would like to remind everyone to turn off all cell phones or pagers or put them on vibrate. Would everyone please stand so we can salute the flag? As is our tradition and procedure before legislative meetings, we like to recognize students and employees of Pittsburgh Public School District. I'd like to ask board members to please come forward, and I will turn this portion of the meeting over to Ms. Heather Hobson.
Thank you, Ms. Sheely. This evening, we have a full house of talented and hardworking high school students from across the district. First, we will recognize a group of students from Pittsburgh-Allderdice who are putting the district on the international map. Recently, 6 students earned titles at the 2013 Japanese Speech Contest. The contest is organized by the Japan America Society of Pennsylvania and the University of Pittsburgh's Asian Studies Department. Nearly 100 Japanese language students from schools in Pennsylvania and West Virginia write and recite speeches on various topics. Accepting on behalf of the school are Pittsburgh-Allderdice's teacher, Dr. Isabel de Valdivia, and assistant teacher, Shuhei Hoko Nohada. Thank you. Dr. Valdivia. Dr. Valdivia? Thank you. Allderdice students did an amazing job and winners in each category. Senior Josh Zach won the Japanese Consulate Award and came in first place in the Advanced Plus category. Josh Zach and Allderdice also took the top title in the beginner level category. First prize went to sophomore Sherry Yang. Junior Joseph Henderson placed second in the intermediate level. In addition to the speeches, the contest included a poster contest. Pittsburgh-Allderdice freshmen swept the competition and took home first, second, and third place prizes. First place went to Hong Ching Chung. Yes. Coming in second was Zaka Algasas, who's not with us this evening, and in third, Nicole Nakarato. Thank you. In all, Pittsburgh-Allderdice earned 7 of the 14 titles given out. That's an Oki accomplishment. Oki means big in Japanese, and they actually taught that to me in the hallway, so they're pretty good. Now moving on to our outstanding athletes. Recently, Pittsburgh Obama Academy's boys varsity swim team made a big splash. The team had an undefeated season. This was the team's first season in the WPIAL division. The team ranked 13th overall and was named section champions in the Class AA division. Each member also earned varsity letters. Here to accept acknowledgement is their coach, and you probably know him. He's a familiar face in the sporting world. It's Mr. Mark Rudicus. Let's welcome the championship team. Beginning with seniors, Dimitri Lardis, Max Okabayoshi, Jonah Rather, Tobias Rather, Eric Rudicus. Now, Eric was a part of a relay team with juniors Tommy Bruton, Ben Friedman, and Yoka Rooney, which placed 8th and received a medal. Sophomores Joe Kovalik and Haas, and he's from Pittsburgh Kappa. Freshman Dustin Budarek of Pittsburgh Kappa, Derek Lardis, Aaron Lickle, who is from Pittsburgh Science and Technology, Sam Oshibashi, Josh Opaco, Samson Alabode, and Grant Rodicus. Eric Rodicus, a senior, also advanced to the PIAA meet at Bucknell. He has competed in the PIAA meet all 4 years of his career. So we wanted to say a big congratulations to the boys varsity swim team from Pittsburgh Obama Academy. Thank you. That concludes this evening's Distinguished Achievement Awards presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Hobson. Mr. Weiss, can we please have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley?
Here.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes, I'm here.
Mrs. Fink?
Here.
Mrs. Zuda?
Here.
Dr. Hawley? Mr. Eisler?
Present.
Mr. McCray?
Here.
Mr. Sumter?
Present.
Ms. Shealy?
Here.
All members present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. At this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Sumter to please share our core value, beliefs, and commitments.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shealy. The Pittsburgh Board of Education is committed to educating all children to their highest level of academic achievement. We're committed to providing a safe and orderly environment for all students and employees. We're committed to providing efficient and effective support for all students, families, teachers, and administrators. We're committed to distributing resources in an efficient and equitable manner to address the needs of all students to the maximum extent feasible. And last but not least, we are committed to improving public confidence and encouraging strong parental and community engagement in the district. Thank you very much, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome, Mr. Sumter. Thank you. Will everyone please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Motion to approve.
Aye, Sir Fink. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved. At this time, I'd like to read the executive statement. In addition to executive sessions announced at the legislative meeting of March 20th, 2013, the board met in executive sessions on April 17th, 2013, and immediately before this legislative meeting to discuss various personnel matters that may include, but are not limited to, administrative vacancies and positions opened and closed. Finally, at the executive session immediately before this legislative meeting, the board discussed student discipline cases that involve violations of various portions of the Code of Student Conduct. The board does not vote at executive session. I would like to read, if everyone could please, we'll first begin with the committee report on education. If everyone would please turn to page 15 of the report. I'd like to give you the numbers of student suspensions, transfer, and expulsions for the month. "58 students suspended for 4 to 10 days. 0 students suspended for 4 to 10 days and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school. 6 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more. 0 students expelled out of school for 11 days or more and transferred to another Pittsburgh public school." Item 12, Pittsburgh Online Academy and the Committee Report of Education was pulled for further discussion at agenda review. In addition, a request was made after agenda review by Dr. Hawley to pull item 10, for the Environmental Charter School. We will begin discussion with item 10, the environmental charter school. Mr. Brent, can you just signify if you have any comments or questions on this item? On 10? Mr. Brentley.
I've raised questions. This is a renewal. I raised questions at the executive session. I've also raised questions 5 years ago for the original application, and I will ask again. Dr. Lane, have the organization with the Environmental Charter School, have they submitted a clear plan on including or targeting or marketing the school to include African Americans?
Mr. Bentley, not to my knowledge, but we're checking to see if Ms. Augustine may have gotten something that I had not seen.
Okay. Well, if it is not here in a matter of minutes before we vote, as I stated earlier, I will not be supporting this. I will vote in the negative because it is very important when you're using public dollars that we are inclusive. And in some cases, it may not be determined if they are excluding African Americans or they're just not putting a marketing plan together. Regardless, in my opinion, it is unacceptable in a public school system, and I think that this charter school has more than enough resources to go out and to actively solicit and to let people know about the wonderful things that are taking place there, and that our doors are open regardless of where you live and regardless of the color of your skin. So I will be voting no on that item. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Thank you. Mrs. Khaleesi, do you have any comments on item 10?
No, but ma'am, I did ask if I could reserve the right to ask questions as I was not able to be at agenda review. I have questions on other items.
Mrs. Khaleesi, we'll take the items that were pulled specifically first, and then we'll come back to any other items that anyone would have.
Thank you.
Anyone else with comments or questions on item number 10? Dr. Hawley, could you allow Dr. Lane?
I've been reminded that we did give the board some information that we had about things that the Environmental Charter School was doing to do some outreach that included advertising in the Soul Pit and the Courier. There's been a bus campaign to target the neighborhoods of Homewood and Wilkinsburg, a bus billboard and bus shelter campaign targeting Larimer, Homewood, and Garfield, preschool poster campaign at open house for preschool directors, events at community centers, including the Kingsley Center, Sarah Hines House, and Homewood Library, East Liberty Library. So those are some of the efforts that have been made.
Doctor, that is good information. I would ask if you would make that list available to board members, what you just read. I would also...
Actually, it was in the update on Friday, Mr. Brentley.
Okay.
Okay.
Who does your staff normally follow along with that, or is it pretty much up to the school to kind of monitor themselves to do that?
And if you mean in terms of the actual enrollment or in terms of the campaign?
The items that you've just read, the campaign.
Okay. No, we would not track the campaign.
So it's a gentleman's agreement. It's an honest thing. It's being open, being transparent. Trust us, we'll be able to do this.
Well, yeah, we accepted the information they gave us.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I will trust them on this one with a positive vote on it, and we hope that they would openly and honestly reach out and to follow what they've suggested there. You received that? That was from the school who actually submitted that?
Yes, Mr. Brentley.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Dr. Hawley?
Yes, Dr. Lane, did they say when they actually did those campaigns?
No, at least I don't have that detail. These are things that have been done, so.
Okay. Well, I do know that they did send out flyers and that kind of activity when they first were opening and they were looking for students. But I don't remember seeing that same level of activity going on lately, because they do have such a large number of students that want to go there. My question for, and I have been in the school, and I know they do a very good job, and parents that I know that send their children there are very excited about the learning activities that go on there. Can you tell me, Dr. Lippert, and you did send this out to us, can you talk a little bit about the partnership, or the partnership we may have in the future with some of the work that they're doing? Because as you know, in order to be a charter school, you're supposed to, one of the criteria is something that the district can actually learn from that charter school and actually do some of those activities as well. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please? Thank you.
Sure. We do have a mutual partnership and collaboration with the Environmental Charter School. Curriculum-wise, they do a very nice job with an integrated curriculum, specifically in science and social studies, that we have modeled in the SciTech school. We're looking to expand that type of integration as we move into the Common Core. Likewise, we've also been an asset to them. They recently admitted a English as second language student, language learner, and they needed our support in actually helping that child integrate. So we do have some partnerships going, and we're looking forward to expanding those as we move forward.
Thank you.
Anyone else on item 10? We'll move on to, I'm sorry, Mr. Sumter? Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you, Ms. Shelley. The initial concern was because of the location of the school being at the boundary of the district, and whether or not they would be recruiting more from outside of the district than inside. That's why the concern was having that school mirror the population of the district. That's why that was such a concern at that time. The concern I have now is that I believe the school is operating off of a lottery system. Is that correct? Does anyone know that? Okay. So now the recruitment is not recruiting people directly to the school for students. They're recruiting numbers for the lottery. So depending on how many folks are in the lottery and the luck of the draw, whether or not a student's name would be called out to go to that school. So, excuse me. The circumstances have changed somewhat from when it started, but just to keep that in mind, that hopefully there are enough students recruited for that lottery process to still encourage, or at least come up with a large number of students to reflect the population of the district attending that school. But I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Just to shed a little bit more light on this lottery issue, the charter school law mandates the use of a lottery when you have more applicants than you have spots. That doesn't address recruiting people to apply, but it does address why they're using a lottery. If you have more applicants than you have spots, you have to have a lottery.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss, and thank you, Mr. Sumter. Seeing no more comments on item number 10, we'll move on to item number 12, Pittsburgh Online Academy. Mr. Brentley?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, and Dr. Lane or Dr. Lippert, if you can respond. Just came back last week from the National School Board Conference, sat in one meeting where they talked about trends of online academies or online schools. And one of the trends they were starting to notice is that there was a newness to it. It was somewhat of a fad or an interesting thing for a lot of students. And they found out that most students would go there for X amount of months, but they eventually returned back to public schools. And I want to know, what safety net are you putting there in their experience to make sure that we capture them when they make that decision to come right back into our schools?
Mr. Brentley, we actually noticed the same thing throughout this year, that although we had 144 students actually enroll in the school, that's not our stable enrollment. Matter of fact, of the 55 students that started in September, 17 of those 55 actually remain. So there's a very high mobility. What I can tell the board is that 75% of those students, of the 144, roughly 71, actually return back to our brick and mortar schools, which is very, very good for us. You may not see that much mobility in a cyber charter school, but what we do is Mark McClinchy, who is our principal, monitors very closely the students' success on the program. So if they're idle and they're not completing assignments, it's almost like being truant from a brick and mortar school. Mark would then work with the family to transition back into one of our brick and mortar schools. So in order to really ensure the success of students in an online academy, you have to be very vigilant on how they're working. Now remember, ours are 100% online at home. They don't come in. The other thing that we did is we have an intervention program that if the student is not showing success, Mark would actually bring the students in for anywhere from a week to 3 weeks and actually monitor their progress to see if they're a student that can be successful in 100% online learning. And then we also put in another intervention that we intend to continue next year, which are principal office hours. So when you're sent to the principal's office, it means that Mark is live on almost like an instant messaging so that he can monitor the students while they're actually supposed to be doing their work, and he can immediately IM them, kind of like text messaging, except over the computer, to see if they have any issues or any problems. So we did a lot of learning this year, and those interventions were put into place as soon as we realized how much mobility there is in and out, and it's typically because of how difficult it is to really maintain 100% online when you're asynchronous and don't have a teacher there all the time. So the trends that you heard about are exactly the trends that we saw. We're fortunate that we were able to build the relationships with the parents and the students to get them back into our brick and mortar schools.
Well, you know, Doctor, that's good to hear. But for them to sign up, the incentives are, we give laptops to them, or we give them something?
This goes back about a year ago, but we use a full turnkey model, which means our partner right now is Waterfront Learning, our Allegheny Intermediate Unit 3. And we, for about $3,500 per student, have connectivity, laptop, other hardware like a printer, mouse, those types of things. And then we get the full complement of the instructional programming like math, science, social studies, related arts, but we also get the teachers. And it's $3,500 per student as they actually enroll. So that's a turnkey model. I'm just going to remind the board that as we transition next year and then into our third year, which is 2014, 2015, that our teachers are supposed to gradually take over more of the online instruction. And that was, we made that determination with your approval, of course, that we wanted to get ours started very quickly, and using a provider who already had the expertise like Waterfront Learning was our best option. So we did, in fact, one of the successes, although the achievement isn't where I'm satisfied, we were able to have options for 144 students that otherwise wouldn't have had the option within Pittsburgh Public Schools, that would have went someplace else for that option, and the likelihood that we would have gotten them back is unlikely. So for the first year, our goal was about 125 student enrollment. We actually exceeded that and had 144. We just didn't have all those students at the same time. But for the first year, I think we learned a lot. And, you know, I commend Mr. McClinchy for the mid-year adjustments that he made to really make what we have work for our students.
Okay. And just a final two quick questions, Doctor. When a student decides to drop out of online education, they are required to return all of the equipment that they received from us?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Sometimes
and
that's-
that's regardless of what school they decide to go to?
Sometimes that's easier said than done, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, and then finally, are we allowed by law to slightly suggest or to offer incentives when we can see that child that's borderline getting ready to drop out, when he or she is getting ready to make a decision on going back to a school? Are we allowed, you know, a $50 gift card when you sign in to the Pittsburgh Public Schools? That's just an example. but are we allowed by law to put that on the table while that family is making the decision if they decide to come back, while they're making a decision?
Well, one of the things we use as a motivator, and it was our attract back technique, was unlike our charter schools that are brick and mortar that actually can capitalize on the Pittsburgh Promise, your cyber charters don't earn Promise dollars. So one of the things why we started in the middle grades, 6, 8, was to get them back in middle school so that they're with us by the time they start high school to get some of the Promise money. It's another reason why we're expanding down to 4 or 5, because if they're in an elementary school, they actually have more potential. I think about 95% of the scholarship money. So one of our incentives is the Pittsburgh Promise for this group of students, because if they choose a cyber charter, they don't have that option.
I see. That's good information. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mrs. Khaleesi, do you have any questions or comments on item number 12?
No, not on that. Item number 12, no.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Fink? Mrs. Azuda? Dr. Hawley?
Yes, Mr. Brentley asked most of my questions. I just want to ask about the students who dropped out. You may not know what grade they were in when they dropped out. Do you?
I don't have that detail with me, but I can get that. I mean, I can get that for you. We have it. I just don't have access to Mr. McClinchy right now to get that level of detail.
I had made a suggestion last year when we started this. Are the children still permitted to have programming in a regular school for, say, athletics?
Yes, even though you have full online academics at home, interscholastic, any type of extracurricular, you would feed into your home school, in your feeder pattern.
Okay. That's about it. Oh, the children, so we had 144 students that actually enrolled in the program, but when we ended up, as of today, we only have 47. We only have 47 students.
47 are actively completing assignments daily and would be issued, they were issued the 3rd report card and would be expecting a 4th quarter report card from us, yes.
Okay. And we don't know what grades they're in?
We do.
You don't? We just don't have them.
I do, I don't have that. I can get that for you, though.
Okay, I would like to know what grades they're in. And I thought that if the children were in kindergarten through 3rd grade in our public schools, and then they started on the cyber school in 4th grade, they would get the full complement if they went all the way through the 12th grade, wouldn't they, for
Yeah.
the promised dollars?
You're absolutely right. Because we have about 80 students right now that are our students that are in cyber charters, if we were able to attract, you'd be surprised how many are actually kindergarten students that are in, about 30 actually are in cyber charters. That strategy is an attract back strategy, but if we move them between our brick and mortar and our online, they have full access to the promised dollars to 10,000 if they
Okay.
stay in the whole time.
Thank you.
Mr. Eisler? Mr. Sumter?
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. Because this is our second year with our online academy, first year, going into our second year. But because of that, we have to go above and beyond the call of duty to make sure it works. And the little nuances of whether or not kids log in, or whether or not they're staying in, or what happens to them when they come back, and all of that in the the startup years, that has to be an intense effort to make sure that it works. Down the road, I know that initially we were talking about lowering children that are in other online schools to our district, or to keep kids in our district from not going to those schools, but also as a cost reduction matter down the road, to look at just an alternative to how kids are educated, and you might have more and more in the district taking advantage of that, and that should be lowering the cost for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Those were the only items that were noted for additional discussion at agenda review. I'll go around the table and for any other items, starting with you, Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I have two other items I just have some questions on. The first,
Excuse me, could you do them one at a time, just in case you
I
spark?
was,
Okay.
but it's a total of two, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
The first one would be page 13, and that's number 19. And Doctor, this is for the maximum staff solutions. This is for additional hiring of nurses or nurse services.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brentley, that was the one that we needed to read a correction into, and I completely forgot about as soon as I said it to Dr. Lane. So can she read the correction before you
Sure,
finish your question?
Thank you. This is item number 19, and it begins on page 13 of 15, but the correction is actually on 14 of 15, the backside. And if you go to the section that says original item, there are two paragraphs. We're in the second paragraph, and it is line 3 in the second paragraph, which begins, amount shall not exceed. The amount there should be corrected to read $3,056,640. And the next line that begins 5170-01C, that amount should be corrected to read $2,200,000. I'm sorry, $2,200,000.
I'm sorry, may I ask you to repeat those numbers again, please?
Yeah, the first one, the first correction is $3,056,640. The second one, in the next line, is $2,200,000.
Well, my question, Doctor, was, this is a contract, it's for contractual services.
Correct.
And I think I've asked this question a year or so ago when we were increasing the contract then. Would it not be, or would it not make sense to just at some point to just hire full-time nurses or additional nurses?
And I don't know, I think Ms. Conley is here, but I do believe that there is a pretty significant difference in cost if we would do that. And this is a lesser cost.
Okay, but $3 million is nothing to sneeze at either. You know what I mean? If we're doing this as an annual or, every 2 or 3 years we're doing this, or it is still a significant cost. And somewhere, somebody's got to kind of do some kind of observation to say, look, wouldn't it make sense to just hire these, make these employees? And, because there are also concerns, are they under the same requirements that we put our nurses under in terms of their certification? Can they give meds? Can they do all of the things that our employee nurses are capable of doing?
They are certified for the duties they're performing, yes.
Okay. And is there a relationship with the nurses group or the nurses association that we have within the district, which is where these nurses will have to work closely with? Do we have a relationship at all, or were they involved at all with some of the selection here?
Well, there isn't really a selection process because we're actually contracting with a provider, so they actually select their staff. We don't select the staff. But in terms of your question, is there a relationship? To my knowledge, they've been working together for a number of years. So I'm sure that there may be some people that individually may know each other, but I'm not knowledgeable as to whether there is a relationship between the organizations, if that's what you're asking me.
Okay. And Doctor, it should be just softly suggested to this provider, while this is a very significant amount of money in terms of contracts, it would also be helpful to see that the folks that they hire somewhat reflect the district. Not mandatory, but helpful, for the very reason that nursing is a huge career in this region. And a lot of our students seeing a diverse group of individuals coming in and out of our schools can, in fact, encourage some to to think that he or she can do that. And so it's just helpful to encourage to this provider that this district is now 55, maybe a little higher African American, and it would be helpful to show those students that there are opportunities there in nursing. So I would hope that we would share that. But I would also like to see somewhere too, if has anybody ever just checked to see what the cost would be for us if we had to incrementally hire 5 nurses every year or every other year? And number two, with that, are we under any requirements in terms of the number of nurses based upon the number of students that we have in the district?
Mr. Brentley, these nurses are actually providing services to students per an IEP, so these are actually one-on-one nurses. But in terms of the ratio of nurses for the district, yes, there are ratios, and we are within those. We certainly can say something to this provider, since, to my knowledge, they've been a provider for the district for a long time, about our goals around having a diverse staff and having our students have opportunity to see adults of all races and ethnicities in these roles, so we can certainly speak to them about that.
That would be helpful. And I guess gender as well, because there are male nurses.
And gender as
Okay.
well. Yep.
Good. Thank you. Oh,
Mrs. Khaleesi, do you have any comments on this item number 19 or questions?
Not on number 19, ma'am.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, Mr. Brentley.
Page 5, number 15, and Doctor, this is the Kaboom Playground for Greenfield, and I shared my concerns. I am happy for Greenfield and happy for any school that's able to maneuver to get a wonderful playground for their buildings. As I mentioned to you before, I'm concerned about transparency. I'm concerned about an equity plan for making it a fair opportunity for all schools to get this. As I mentioned before, some parents will make a decision on sending their child to a particular school based on the fact if they have a playground. And some schools are at such a disadvantage. So I've shared my concerns. I'm going to continue to echo that we find a way to even the playing field for a needs-based kind of site location for the playground. So on this particular item, I won't vote no because I'm happy for the school, but in terms of the folks over there at Allegheny who's been trying for years and the others who are unable to maneuver this kind of force to make it happen, I will simply abstain on that until we're able to get a plan together that would include all schools to get the wonderful Kaboom playground program that they have here. Thank you.
Mrs. Khaleesi, on item number 9, any questions or comments? Anyone else? Okay, Mrs. Khaleesi, you're on. 1 second.
I'd like to, and I apologize that I was not at agenda review, but I have some questions, starting with number 1A. If I could please get some answers. As I read the board tab that was delivered with my board update, I believe you guys received it at agenda review. I read this, and I'm not sure I understand what exactly, well, both 1A and 1B, matter of fact, I'd like to know exactly what is expected of these two individuals to do in this time period for this amount of money.
Mrs. Khaleesi, and perhaps Mr. Brentley wants to add to this, but my understanding is these individuals are going to be responsible for seeking or helping with organization around Take a Father to School Day, as well as working with some of our teen fathers to get them, I guess, involved and engaged with Take a Father to School Day. So it's a lot about recruiting more of our fathers and other male role models for students for Take a Father to School Day.
Looked at the board action information sheet. It says, describe the expected results of this activity, and it says to develop a TAFSD, which I'm assuming means take a father, I assume, to school day, ambassador at each school to help lead and advise the Take Your Father to School Day for each school. 5,000 Pittsburgh Public School fathers/males will participate in the activity. Is there a guarantee that there's that many individuals that will be participating?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of your question.
I'm sorry, Dr. Lane, I can't hear you.
I guess
I'm
we
s-
can't
can I-
hear each other.
You know, the last part of her question was is there a guarantee on getting 5,000 fathers involved?
I don't know that anybody could offer such a guarantee. I think that clearly the best probably most people would do is design a process and work that process in order to get fathers involved. But I think that is the goal.
But that's not what it says. It says describe the expected results of this activity. So it's, in my understanding of what I just read, it's an expected result. It's not, it's an expected result.
That's true. But your question to me was, is it a guarantee? That's not the word that was used. It was guarantee. But that is what the effort is about, to get that number of male role models involved.
Okay, so if they do not achieve this, what is the consequences?
There is not an embedded consequence in not achieving the 5,000.
And 10% of the fathers/males will become consistent school volunteers. What's to say that that's even possible?
Out of 5,000, that's not a huge percentage. I'm not knowing how difficult that's going to be, but I think the effort is designed to get, as I said, more male role models engaged, and also to have them continue, not just be participants and Take a Father to School Day, but also be engaged at the end of during the school year next year.
So, what are we using as a evaluation tool for this contract?
Well, I think one of the things that probably will have to happen is we'll have to have a log of the participants, and then I think our schools will know, school by school, whether those participants actually participate as volunteers next year. So I think that would not be incredibly difficult to track, but clearly we'd have to know who participated in order to figure that out.
So, I think that, with all honesty, a lot of credit is not given to a lot of the males that do participate in our schools. Easily 10% of the 5,000 probably already are active members of our school district. So, I have to question whether this is actually a strong effort. And also it's stating that it's from March 20th through June 30th. If the event is on May 17th, what is the work that's going to be done, let's say from today when we approve this, till March 17th. I mean, I don't think that there's enough information in here to help me feel comfortable with voting on this.
Mrs. Khaleesi, the information that I know I've already conveyed to you, so I don't know that I can give you any further detail. As I said, perhaps Mr. Brentley knows more, because I know he's been working pretty hard on this, so perhaps he knows more about it. But as far as I know at this point, the goal is around helping get the event set up, helping to recruit, getting the ambassadors as you described. There already has been an event, as you know, down at City Council, the Proclamation Day. And beyond that, it'll be an effort to keep the men who participate involved, and I would hope that the effort would be to get them set up for being engaged as either the rest of this school year and perhaps the rest of the school year and next year as well.
So, again, what is the evaluation tool that we'll be using to see if this is at all successful?
There is no tool, but I think what will have to happen is, as I described, we'd have to actually count and see how many participants there are, and of those next year, how many actually engage next year. And I know our schools do keep a record of their volunteers, so I don't see that as a really difficult thing to count.
So I guess one of my issues is that, you know, having a day that we put aside for taking a male father to school is, you know, it's a one-day event. That doesn't mean that those individuals will return, and a lot of them are ones that are always there anyway. So do they get counted in? Do they not get counted in? How exactly is that going to work?
Well, what I would suggest we're going to have to do is keep a record of the men who attend, and then of those who actually participate next year. Principals will know if those were people that were in their school as volunteers the year before, because we know who the volunteers are now, we'll know who the volunteers are then, and we can compare them.
And don't we have these numbers from last year?
I personally don't, but I do believe we do know how many participated last year.
You know, obviously we're expected to vote on this evening, and that information is not available that I know of this evening. I'm questioning in the back page again where it says board action information sheet. It says, will evaluation be made on the basis of predetermined written criteria? The box is marked no. Will there be a tangible work product at the completion of the contract? Again, the box is marked no. Is it possible to change those boxes to yes?
I would think that the people that are working on this would be agreeable to that, because, as I said, I think we are going to, in order to know the level of success, we are going to have to keep track of the men who participate on the day, and then furthermore, as I said, do some comparisons to next year. So as I said, I certainly can say that, you know, that's something that we would like to have. I don't think there'd be any objection to that.
I see that this is all coming from a foundation that's funding this event this year. I'm looking at now 4A. It is a board action for payments authorized for various vendors to support and promote the annual Take a Father to School Day. On the back side of that.
Mrs. Khaleesi, I'm sorry. Let me interrupt you before you move on to 4A and make sure that no one else has comments or questions on 1A and 1B. Dr. Hawley? ahead.
As a former principal, I can say, I really support this effort to get young men and men, period, into our buildings to support their children, and not just their children, but also their family members. Because as you may not know, there are uncles, brothers, grandfathers that actually come in to support the children. And the children are very excited about these males coming in to the building. We really want to, as a former educator, as a former principal, I always wanted to encourage males to become more of a part of the child's life in school, not just at home. They were certainly doing that, but we wanted them to become more involved with the academic activities that their children were doing in school. So this program in and of itself is a benefit, and if we are looking for something to evaluate it on, we could always do a survey at each school, and I think that's what we did. I can't remember that for 3 years ago. We did a survey with the males to see if we've done what we needed to do in order to encourage them to become more actively involved in the school. And certainly there are some males that do that anyway, but you're always looking for ways to encourage as many males that have an attachment to the children in the school to become involved in the child's life educationally. And I have to say that this event sparked so much interest when we were at the National School Boards Association, the CUBE section of the, especially, because they actually talked about it. And I was telling Mr. Brentley, people were really excited about seeing that program last year. Of course, I didn't go last year, but they were really excited about it. So this is not just something that's a fly-by-night activity. This is now like a national interest in getting males interested in their children's lives in terms of academics. We want them to be just as excited about the ABCs as they are about football, basketball, baseball, hockey, swimming, or whatever athletic event their fathers usually take them to 3 times a week for practice, and then a game on Saturday and Sunday. We want them to do that, but we also want them to be just as involved in them doing those ABCs that those academics that we have in school. So I just wanted to put that out there, that we can do a survey with the fathers on Bring Your Father to School Day, the young men that'll be there. Thank you.
You're welcome, Dr. Holly. Mrs. Azuda?
Comment and then a question. Comment is if truly the goal is to get the male role models into the buildings again, I again say then this day should be moved into the fall so that the students are in the school that they are going to be in for that year. Between the natural move from 5th grade up to 6th grade or 8th grade up to 9th grade, as well as all the people that move during the summer, if you would have the men in the building in the fall, I think you would have hopes of more residual effects. My question is, on the board tab, if I read correctly, it said that they would be paid the $12,545 plus mileage and gas. Has that been dropped? Is that now just part of a flat? Like, how are they being paid?
To my knowledge, it's the $12,500 plus mileage and gas.
You said,
I thought the mileage and gas was in excess of the daily rate. So I don't believe there's a change there, but somebody can correct me if there has been.
So that's not on here now. That's not what we're voting for now.
Okay. Well, as I said, that was my understanding, so that may not have made its way from the board tab instead unless somebody has changed that. But I didn't believe that that had been changed. So we may need to correct that. Do you know, Mark?
I believe the mileage and gas has been added to the total contract amount for each of the individuals.
And so if you look at these two, 12,545, and add them to 4A for 20,410, that's the total. There's no place that's allotting for gas and mileage. That would then be over the amount of foundation and be coming out of the board money. The foundation money is in 1A, in 1B, and 4A. None of which mention gas and mileage. And I'm thinking with 52 schools, they're going to be doing a lot of driving, which is going to come up to a lot of mileage and gas. And so it's not covered anywhere.
It's not specifically spelled out in the other various activities that are listed in 4A, but individuals in my office have been working on the contracts, and the mileage amount has been included in the contract amount that's listed for the two individuals. So it will be part of an item that's listed in the contract. So it will be their daily rate plus their reimbursement for.
And I hear what you're saying, the agreement made with them gives it to them, but what we are voting on tonight does not. If we vote on this as it is, they don't get gas and mileage.
Mrs. Suzuta, I think what we'll have to do, if that's not included, is we'll have to work on some other line item in this budget, because we do all know what the grant total is, and we can't exceed that amount. So we'll figure that out so that it does not exceed the amount. But we are asking you to authorize that they would be able to be reimbursed for gas and mileage.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions on items, Mr. McCray?
I also wasn't at the agenda review, so I'm going to have to abstain on these items. But there was a question about how the consultants were selected, and I don't think that was resolved. So like I said, I wasn't here for the discussion, so I can't vote on it.
Any other comments or questions on item 1A or B, item 1 in general? Mr. Brentley?
I just want to close on this issue that the most important thing to remember, I think we spent nearly half an hour or so on this item. Most important thing to remember that these are two African Americans. And that's all I wanted to mention.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Sumter? Mrs. Khaleesi, give me a second, please, because Mr. Sumter.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Sumter has a comment. Please hold.
Mr. Brentley, may I ask you a question, sir? How many years have we been doing this activity?
15. This will be the 15th year.
15 years, more than a decade, institutionalized activity that's been going on, and is very much in line with our commitment of improving public engagement with the school system. Thank you very much.
Mr. Eisler?
Sorry, Ms. Shealy. I asked Mr. Brentley the same question last month, and you said 15 years. And you secured this money on your own?
As I mentioned before, had a brief conversation with the Heinz Foundation. And general question, how are we doing? What do you think? Are there any things that's important? And of course, I had to let them know. Great program, made national recognition, and
I understand.
And then
I'm staring at the button. I
Okay,
know.
we-
I don't. You
but
do
that's
not,
the
You do not
conversation.
have to say that to me. I mean,
but I want to give you, I'm answering.
I'm
That's
with you.
the conversation.
I'm with you.
And I said, if I had a magic wand, we need to keep this program successful. We're bringing men in never ever before, no other school district can boast about that. And I said, can you help?
And did they ask you to dream in terms of giving them the budget?
We made that conversation happen between the two of them.
Because you have added significantly to the events and the expenditures,
Yes,
all covered with money you secured.
that's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome, Mr. Eisler. Mrs. Khaleesi?
Madam Chair, can you hear me? Yes. Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Joseph, if I may ask you to do some quick math in your head, or however you do it. at $185 per day, how many days would that be for the 12,500 and some?
That would be about 68 days.
And how many days is this contract for?
The contract's March 20th through June 30th.
So that's what, April, May,
That's what-
that's a little over 3 months,
Correct.
which is almost 90 days, yet this is insinuating that we're paying them $185 a day for, what did you say, 67 days? So what happens when they are past the amount of days, according to this? Do we owe them more money then?
Mrs. Scalese, can I interrupt to add a little clarity? There are weekends in that 90 days, so there are actually probably only 66 work days.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. I'm having a very hard time hearing you.
There are weekends in those 90 days. So it's not 90 days, it's 13 weeks. 13 times 5 is 65 days.
You know, I understand that we want to get as many males actively involved in our schools as possible. But sometimes I feel like women are ignored, as though, you know, we put our time in, we do it too, and we, you know, never have a day of celebration. I also feel that this is sometimes taking away from education time. I believe that we should do all we can to encourage everyone to be part of our schools. But if I may move on, I did not know about the mileage, which is now a whole nother issue because that could run into a chunk of change. And I don't know what the mileage amount would be. And I don't know how somebody would prove the mileage that they put in. So, you know, again, how are we expected to vote on this? Are they getting this flat rate of $12,545 regardless of mileage? Or are we going to end up paying them more regardless of where this money is coming from? I have somewhat of an issue with that, and I don't really think it matters. Well, I do think it matters how and who these gentlemen are that were chosen. I have no idea who either one of them are. It doesn't matter to me. If I may move on, ma'am, to item 4A. Is that okay? Yes. Thank you. It is also a board action for $20,410 for various vendors to support and promote the annual Take Your Father to School Day. And it says that the board previously approved the acceptance of the $45,500 from the Heinz Foundation. But as I looked at the back of this board tab that I received, I found things on here that I'm very seriously questioning, such as pirate tickets, $5,500 on pirate tickets. I don't know who gets those tickets. I don't know how they're given out. There's no explanation for that. There's a KQV News Radio, which is for radio advertisement. When I went back and listened to the agenda review meeting, I understood that Mr. Brentley was going to use that money for advertisement of his own radio show on KQV, which has me extremely concerned. A Walter Lewis that will be paid $1,250 as a videographer. I'm not sure I understand what he's going to do, and we do need the permission of parents to have our children either their picture taken or have them in videos. You know, that's very clear that we're not allowed to take their pictures and we're not allowed to put them on film unless we have parent permission. And I don't know what this gentleman's supposed to do. I went one step further, and there's a second videographer for $1,250. There's no name attached to that. So I questioned that person and what they were supposed to do. I also questioned what CPI Creative is, other than I understand it makes wrist bands, $1,160. Again, who gets them? What's it going to say? Is that an advertisement for the company? I don't know what that is. I have no idea. Then there's a photographer for $500. Again, we need permission from parents to have any child's picture taken. And I don't know what the process was used to choose this photographer or why. I don't know what the intention is to do with any of those, for either the videographers or for the photographer. There's also a teen elect program incentive. I don't know what that means. I have no idea what we're going to spend $4,000 on. A Father's Day celebration cookout, which is about a little over $1,200. $1,000 of it is for food. $240 of it is for supplies. I don't know when that's taking place. I don't know who's invited. Is it only for men, or is it for all of us? Is there a day that's been planned that we don't? There's a lot lacking here. There's advertisement, social media, print, almost $1,200, $1,160 for that. And there's no explanation what that's about. There's planning meeting refreshments. I don't know what planning meeting refreshments we're referring to. What planning meetings? Where were they held? What could have cost? How many people attended? You're talking $800. There were supplies. I don't know what the supplies are. Another $550. I think this is very vague, and it has me very uncomfortable. I think the one that has, there's quite a few that have me very uncomfortable, and I will be very honest that the KQV News Radio probably has me the most uncomfortable, and then the videographers have me very uncomfortable as well. There is no explanation to any of these things. They came to us again last minute, but, I'll even accept that. I don't know when this money was given to the district. I know that from what I went back and looked up, we approved the money last month, but I think that I have the right to ask if for any reason, for ethical reasons. I am not comfortable with our children having, being put in a position where videographers are going to be there, and more than one, and I don't know where they're going. I'm very uncomfortable with a photographer taking pictures. I'm very uncomfortable with a Father's Day celebration cookout that doesn't even, it's in my copy that I have, it's actually blacked out. It doesn't give me any information at all. What food? What supplies? Where's it happening? What's the purpose of it? The advertisement. What advertisement? And how many meetings did they have? Who had these meetings? Where were they located? What exactly were purchased? Is there receipts? I can't imagine that one of the foundations would be okay with not having receipts and following the letter of the law that is very clear about you cannot take children's pictures without parents' approval. I'm very uncomfortable with this. And I'm very uncomfortable because at the end of the day, I feel as though there's some things here that could be unethical. I can't support this. I cannot support this. And, if it was your child in a building and their picture was being taken without your knowledge, how would you feel? And if we're paying for radio advertisement for a specific channel or show, from what I understood from Agenda Review, Mr. Brentley's comment was that he goes out there and he has to solicit, advertisement to continue his show. I understand that. I know a lot about that for other reasons, and I know that you cannot have a radio show, even some television shows, without having the money to back it, and you do that through advertisement. If this is going through that avenue, this is a serious issue. This is a very serious issue. Now, I have no problem with encouraging our fathers, our males, to come into our buildings. I think that that's the greatest thing in the world. I also think that women do it all the time, along with men. I don't think men get the credit for coming into our buildings as much as they do. I really don't. But it seems like we're okay with spending a lot of money on some things that there's no explanation for. There's no explanation why we're buying pirate tickets. What game? Who's going? How much are these tickets? Why are we paying KQV $3,000? Why do we have two videographers? What's the purpose? Can I get some answers?
Mrs. Khaleesi, I don't quite know where to start, to be honest. I don't have the level of detail you may be seeking right at my fingertips, and so I'm probably not going to, I don't have the date for the Pirates game. I do know that the advertising at KQV is to advertise to get, this is part of the recruitment effort to get males to attend the event. I would expect that because there are two different videographers, that one is for one event and one might be for the other one, because we do have the Pirates Day, we do have the day of the actual Take a Father to School Day, and perhaps there was some plan around also the day of the proclamation at the city. So that would be what I would expect that might be. I don't have the date of the celebration cookout, and I don't have who the guest list is, but I do know Ms. Burgess is here. She said she does have some details, not all that you're seeking, but she has some. So I'm going to ask her to grab a mic and come to the table and provide whatever details she might be able to provide.
For this?
She is working with the two gentlemen, our former employees that are working to do this project. She is working with them directly.
I'm sorry, with who, ma'am?
With the two individuals we're asking you to approve this evening, Mr. Phillips and Mr. Hubbard.
So, forgive me, and I'm going to have a lot of questions here, okay? So, Ms. Burgess is working with Mr., I believe his name is pronounced L, if I'm pronouncing that correct, and Mr. Phillips. And did they come up with this list of things, these activities?
Yes, they did. When I first got the grant request, this was the list we were provided. And I believe they worked this through with officers at Hines.
I'm sorry, I'm really having a hard time hearing you.
They worked this through with the officers at the Hines Endowment.
Hear that, Mrs. Scalise?
No, I'm sorry, Mr. Eisler.
They worked that out with the officers of the Hines endowments.
They worked what out with them?
The list of activities.
The budget.
Okay, but that doesn't tell me anything. I mean, the money is still coming through the district.
That's true, and Ms. Burgess may be able to provide you a few more details, so that's why we asked her to come to the table.
Okay, I'm waiting.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Scalise. You referenced the Pirates tickets. They're $11 per ticket, and you asked who would be attending the game. These tickets will be divided to schools. Each school's receiving six tickets per school. Along with those individuals who attended the proclamation, they will receive 2 tickets each. Principals will be given, it's recommended that they use them as an incentive via drawing, but that final decision will lie with the principal. You also asked about the photographers. We're looking at those photographers going into schools. You did reference your concern around students' pictures being taken. As a former principal fully understand that there's permission that's already normally has been signed in schools, that if students are part of these pictures, that parents have given permission. So I think I can safely say that as a former principal, the principal fully understand that pictures are not to be taken without the consent of parents.
Forgive me, Ms. Burgess, are you saying that every school has the permission of these parents to have these pictures taken?
I'm going to talk about the normal rules. It's at the beginning of the school year. Principals have on file forms that states that if their children are being permitted to take pictures. And so if there's something going on in a school and we're engaging pictures of students, principals are aware of those students' pictures who are not to be taken. But if we're looking at specific students' pictures, principals will be made aware of this. These pictures here, though, are more primarily of getting the fathers that's going to be engaged in the activities on that day. So they're really going to be geared more towards taking pictures of fathers in these various schools every day. I'm sorry, not every day, but on this particular day.
What happens if you have a child that comes into the school 2 or 3 months into the school year? How do you get their permission?
Once again, they're sent home, and again, I want to say that the main purpose of these pictures here is that the photographers will be going to all the schools. We're trying to get them to all the schools We've also contacted Dave, our photographers within our school district, to also go into these schools, because our desire is to capture the pictures of the men in the schools within the Pittsburgh Public Schools during this particular day.
What's the guarantee that these pictures belong to the district and that they can't use it for anything else?
I think we can make it clear, and I don't believe there was any plan to use it for anything other than a recruitment tool around Take a Father to School Day. Because since the district is actually receiving the grant and then actually paying, we are paying for those pictures from from the photographers and the videographers, so they would actually be district property.
There's nothing here that indicates that.
Well, I'm going to ask Mr. Weiss if maybe he can address that, because it's my understanding that if we pay for something, we own that.
We pay for the pictures, we own them. As far as the releases are concerned, Ms. Burgess is correct. It's a protocol in each school that these releases are sent home. If students come in mid-year, the packet is sent. We all know that there are many, many pictures we see of the Promise campaign, et cetera. It's very similar to that sort of a process. And we've never had a problem before, and there have been pictures and video taken in my memory on this program. So I think the release issue and the ownership issue is the same as it's always been.
What about the wristbands?
What about, her question was, what about the wristbands?
Well, wristbands are pretty popular with young people right now, and these wristbands would be for the kids and the fathers, would be my assumption. And the wristband would say, Take a Father to School Day.
What about the advertisement for KQV?
Well, as I said, I've given you all the information I have on that, but it's my understanding we are paying for KQV to advertise this event for us to help in terms of recruiting men and significant male role models to participate.
When will these advertisements take place?
Prior to the event would be my assumption, because the goal is to get more people there. So my guess is that those would be taking place, between now and the event.
What about the Father's Day celebration cookout?
I don't have any more detail on that. I don't know if Ms. Burgess does. Perhaps she does.
The planning committee is presently working on that, but this is an event that has been held over previous years, and this is going to support the efforts.
I'm sorry, Ms. Burgess, please repeat yourself.
This Father Day celebration has occurred over previous years, and these funds is going to help support the event in the hope that we will be having additional parents at this time attend the function.
Planning meetings, they haven't decided when they're going to do this yet?
I'm sorry, Ms. Khaleesi, could you repeat yourself, please?
Sorry, I said at the planning meetings, which I don't know if they've been held yet or not, has it not been discussed when this Father's Day cookout will take place?
The date that we have been discussing is definitely on Father's Day, and again, we're still in the planning stages.
Father's Day?
Yes.
And the planning meeting refreshments, can you give me some idea of what
The planning committee, I believe, is working on the refreshment list, Mrs. Scalesi, but my guess is it would be normal picnic-type food.
Meetings are they having? How many meetings are scheduled?
3.
So for 3 meetings, how many people usually attend?
I have not actually been to one, so I can't give you a number of attendees.
Attended.
Ms. Burgess can speak to it.
At the last meeting, we had 6 participants. There was pizza served at that meeting.
So 6 people at the last meeting, and there's what, how many more scheduled?
To be honest with you, we don't have like a definite number. It is dependent upon the need, but we do have, I can't say exactly the date for the next meeting, but I can say that we have them as, thus far we've been having them as regular as once a week.
Mrs. Scalesi, I might say on that amount, clearly the menus are not, extravagant, but it is an up to amount,
6
so.
people at one meeting alone.
It's an up to amount, so it would not exceed that, and my guess is, based on the number of people that are participating, it probably will come in well under that amount.
Well, it doesn't say anywhere that it's, that I can see up to an amount.
Well, I don't think anybody's compelled to spend $800, is all I'm saying. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to get upset if we don't spend $800. And my guess is that any amount that came in under would help defray, for example, parking and gasoline.
I'm very uncomfortable with this. I would be much more comfortable if there was a great deal more detail that came with this. There is not. As I said before, this may be legal, but I'm feeling very uncomfortable because just because something's legal doesn't mean it's ethical. And I'm not supporting this, and I understand what the goal is. I just am not comfortable with the way it's being handled. I don't even know what this Teen Elect Program incentive is. I don't know what the advertisement, in parentheses, social media, print, etc., for almost $1,200 is. I don't know what the supplies are. I mean, I understand that, coffee, donuts, I know that they had the day where they went down to city council, and that I understood and heard, because nobody actually told me, there was approximately between 70 and 80 men that went. I'm not sure how many lunches were purchased, and that's obviously not even in here, so I don't know how much money was spent there. Can you answer that, Ms. Burgess?
That was during the proclamation day. I cannot, I have no idea about the food, but there were 76 men who attended that activity.
And you don't know how many lunches were purchased and at what price?
No, I do not.
And do you know if it came from these funds?
I'm not aware of that, Ms. Scalesi.
Well,
Excuse me, I believe that those lunches came from the ERA funds. I believe, and maybe someone else could help me, I believe they came from the, Sodexo funds.
I will not be supporting this. I feel this is not enough information. And I cannot agree to pay KQV this kind of money. I cannot agree to pay for 6 tickets for each school. I don't know how that's going to get divvied up. I cannot agree for a photographer that could easily use those pictures as much as we think we own them. You know, with social media today, you have very little control over it. 2 videographers doesn't even make sense to me. I don't understand why we need 2. I don't understand a lot of this. I truly do not, and I'm very uncomfortable with it. And I truly hope that my colleagues understand that we demand a lot from our staff. We demand that they tell us every penny they spend, and that before it's spent, we approve it. So I thank you, Ms. Shealy, for being patient while I asked my questions, since I wasn't able to be there at agenda review. But I also would like to make it very clear that I find this very uncomfortable, and I cannot and will not support it. Okay? Would you like me to go on to my next one?
No, please hold.
Sure.
Dr. Hawley, or Mrs. Fink?
We're still on the same topic? Okay. When you talk about the advertisement on KQV, I don't know how many young fathers listen to KQV. So if that's the audience you're targeting, you'd probably do well with some other stations. And as far as advertisement to get fathers into school, that's not what you need. All you need is your son or daughter saying, "But Dad, you've got to go. All my friends' dads are going, and if you don't show up, I'll never hear the end." And Dad says, "Okay, I'll take the day off work. I'll be there." That's better advertisement than you're going to get on KQV.
Mrs. Asuda?
Yeah, I noticed this is a different photographer than we had last year, but the district has never received the photographs from last year, so you might want to shore up the process to make sure that when the bills are paid, that the product comes into the district and is kept here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Asuda.
Dr. Holly?
Yes, and I want to thank Mr. Brentley for, and Mrs. Burgess for putting this process together. As long as I've been on the board and as long as I've been to board meetings, I've never heard a board tab need this much information in order to pass. I'm confused, but needless to say that I am happy to have all of these activities going on around this really outstanding event. And as far as each one of these items are concerned, I see that there is a need for all of them. And to answer the question, if a child comes in the middle of the school year, they get the same packet that the children got at the beginning of the school year. So that mother, dad, or whomever is in charge of that child will fill out that packet. So the principal will know which children can and cannot be videotaped. But I'm excited about May 17th. I can't wait. I'm sorry I won't be able to come to the cookout on Father's Day because I do Father's Day with my son. But I'm 100% behind this wonderful effort to try and get males to come into our schools and become a part of the school environment. Thank you, Mr. Brentley and Mrs. Burgess.
Mr. McCray? Thank you, Dr. Holly.
Just a real quick thought just came to my head. What about the children that don't bring a significant male model to the school? Do we have something that they can do on that day, or do they also get a wristband, or what, is there any way to include them?
Can I answer that? At some schools, we use older brothers. I know at At my school, when I was the principal, I actually used my middle schoolers, males, to come down to be with some of the children that did not have a significant person there for them. Some schools actually go and solicit some of the high school males to come down, and I've done that as well, to come over and be with some of the students that did not have a significant other, because we had an activity that actually went on during that day for the students and their fathers. So principals, many of the principals are very, they're very imaginative as to how they actually do that day to make sure that everybody feels comfortable.
Thank you. I wanted to get that out there. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McCrae. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Just a few things. And I think that has to be noted that the final line on this board tab is the total payment amounts shall not exceed $20,410 from account lines listed above. So it is clear that this is not to exceed any of these expenditures according to what we will be voting on tonight. So that is there. Mr. Weiss, just a question or two for you. And I do not want to doubt your legal advice on the photos, but if it is a work made for hire, there is a distinction between ownership and usage when it comes to photography, and I think we need to be clear in what our arrangements are if what you said is what your intent is, because there is a difference in my understanding, and I don't want to get into it here, and it really is not germane. It is really up to how we conduct business as a school district, and as long as it's the way we treat everybody else, I'm fine with that. So I just want to state that. Again, I think that what we have to remember, and I think is very, very important, is that this is not a new program. This is an expanded program of something that has been worked on for 15 years. I remember when I was running for the board the first time, I was at a candidates forum with Mr. Brentley when he presented this, and it was something that he had been working on then. I don't think we can ever do enough to get parents, or Dr. Holly, and I think you did a good job, family members or those who care for the children in our schools into the schools, and I think we have to do everything we can. And again, if in fact the funding source for this has agreed to this, and it conforms, Mr. Weiss, to what we do as a school district, I think we have to take that into consideration whenever we have our vote. And I just, again, ask you, are you comfortable with this particular item as it is spelled out in this board tab?
I am, and I have to say that sort of as a corollary to what you said both tonight and last month about the duration of this program, a lot of these activities and the videographer and the photographer and that sort of stuff has been done before. And Mr. Brentley has done outreach in the past to raise these funds privately. I know that from personal knowledge. So there's nothing materially different about this item except it's being paid for by an outside source. I don't see any issue. We talked about the advertising last week, and it's clear that the advertising is for the event. It's not for Mr. Brentley's show. And that question was asked specifically and it was answered. So the answer is yes. There's nothing that I see that is a concern.
Mr. Sumter.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy. I just very quickly want to reiterate a couple of items regarding this program. It is in line with the board's commitments. It has been going on for over 15 years. It has garnered national recognition for this school district. National recognition for this school district. So a program of this nature, if there's ways to expand it and to keep it going and to improve upon it, we should do everything possible to bring that about. Thank you.
Welcome, Mr. Sumter. Mr. Brentley.
Yes, I just wanted to just kind of put out some general information, not to respond to anybody to to get things rolling again. First of all, the money listed for the KQV advertisement, and by the way, on behalf of KQV, let me just say thank you, because all the advertisement that folks gave them over the last 20 minutes or 45 minutes, I'm sure they appreciate it. So they are probably watching and saying thank you for all the advertisement. As I mentioned many times before, this $3,000 is coming out of a grant that I received from receiving last year's National School Boards Association. This is not board money. We were the one of 3 grand prize winners, and each grand prize winner received a check for $4,000. This is a part of that. I think I've said that so many times. We actually presented it to Dr. Lane when I came back from the conference here at this table at a meeting. Also, comments were made here about photographs they haven't received yet from last year, and I believe Ms. Azuda made those comments, and you asked me for those many times. In the beginning of the application, of the Magna Award application, it clearly states that anything that you submit for national contests is theirs. They don't turn it back. And so we withheld a payment to the photographer, a national young lady, a national photographer now, national award-winning photographer. We've withheld her payment for over 8 months because they couldn't get pictures from me. Well, you can't get them from me because they don't return them. I sent them T-shirts, caps, photographs, and they would sit back and they make the decision on what goes in their magazine. Yes, they just happened to choose this one lady. Yes, she is African American. Yes, her bill was under $300. And we withheld it. And it was her photographs that got us into this book, national. The next point that's very important, the videographers, and yes, they are African American as well. The reason for the videographers, on May 17th, we have 50-something schools. No one photographer can cover all the schools. So the game plan is to slice the city up into 4s, and I believe we're even going to have some of our guys going out. Each one will take a section of the city, and we're going to attempt to capture the men getting involved in their activities. Put in a video form, it will then come back and edit, and then be able to give this board and this district and this city a clean, clear product. And so that's the reason for the videographers. And what's different from last year and the years in the past? Years in the past, I had to go, excuse the term, but I had to shake down folks for help. And thank you to Mr. Weiss, because 1 year, all right, 1 year he stepped up. He took care of the T-shirts for us. And then I have to go somewhere else. This is the first year in 15 years where I did not have to do that. One agency, one company believed in us and said, submit it, we support it, we see what you're getting out of it. And so that's the big hoopla here, is that one person is believing, and they asked, and the 3 of them got together, they're moving forward, and it's working. In terms of the meetings, we've been meeting every 2 weeks in this building next door. No, upstairs, no, next door. Conference Room A, the wing of the Conference Room A, open to the public for anyone to attend. 5:30. When is the next meeting? This Friday. This Friday. Where men are coming together to talk about how to be better fathers. The comment was made about the mothers, and we don't do anything for mothers. At this table, 3 years ago, I submitted the Mother's Appreciation Day for the Pittsburgh Public Schools. A board that was predominantly women voted it down. Mr. Weiss, I'm going to ask you in the next couple of days to please pull that up send one to each board member. I had to defend that on this floor, why I wanted to do it. And as well, there were some concerns from staff. It's too busy, we don't want you to do that right now, can you hold off for it? We had it planned. At that time, we said there was a woman that was a president, we had a woman that's a superintendent. I had asked my wife to chair this event, and on that day, it wouldn't be Take a Mother to School Day, it was Mother Appreciation Day, because they're the ones holding this thing together, okay? And I had to fight and defend the importance of us doing it. We were going to do it around Mother's Day. We had things lined up at one particular school. It was going to be the hub. It was nice, but it was women, and some of the same board members here voted against it that are now raising the question about it. So, and then also the question about the fathers or the children who don't have it, and I think I say this every day, and I don't mind repeating it. We are well aware of the fact that there are quite a few kids who don't have children. Two things. On that day, kids don't have fathers. Thank you. On that day, we changed the definition of fathers. We just simply mean a positive male role model in that child's life. Number two, we ask the teachers and the principals to divvy up your fathers. Have some go to each room. Number three, we're creating father ambassadors and fathers stand in. And we have quite a few of them who show up and say, I have no children in the district, but I want to be a part. And then that principal then directs them where to go and where to stand with the children. The purpose, again, is to never make anybody feel uncomfortable. The purpose is to provide an assistance to the mothers who's been holding this district together. How difficult is it for me to introduce anything and get support? When I can introduce something for women, and the women on the board voted down, okay? And right now, we would probably be in our third annual Women's Appreciation Day. And so, you know, at some point, you gotta, if it's moving, if it works, you gotta get out of the way, jump on it, and join in, because it's working. Another item to keep in mind on the same subject is that we just came back from the National School Boards Conference last year. I was chosen one out of 6 national judges to go to the National School Boards, their headquarters, and for a day and a half to sit there and go through nearly 200 applications. It's okay, it's nice, but it gets Pittsburgh back on the national scene. And I think any other school district would jump for joy and embrace this in the Fathers Program. But here, we spend an hour. We spend an hour. So that is all. I'm not saying it to respond to anybody. I'd rather not respond to anybody, but an hour. I am finished. If nobody answers any more questions. Did I say anything?
Mrs. Azuda?
Just to clarify that I did ask you several times for the pictures, and you said 8 months. So I'm sorry it took 8 months for you to tell me that you didn't have them. It would have been helpful if you had told me the first time. I will say that after last Wednesday's meeting, I went on the American School Board Association website, and it was actually the first time I read the application for the award, because Mr. Brentley had submitted it, and even though I was president, I didn't see it. We didn't know we were getting it actually till it was awarded. So if anybody would like to see the application and see exactly what it stands, I mean, you've heard a lot. It is on the American School Board Association Magna Awards. It's on the website. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mrs. Azuda. Any more on this item? Mrs. Khaleesi, I think you have the floor.
I just want to say this, and I'm done, okay? For years, we had graduation day on Father's Day. Mr. Brentley made it very clear that he did not appreciate that. We changed it, but I guess it's okay to have a Father's Day cookout on that day when everybody should be spending it with their families, which was the reason why he didn't think we should have this, we shouldn't have graduations on Father's Day. I didn't get the answer to my question. And Mr. Brentley, I'd like you to answer it. This KQV money, is it going to be used when you do your KQV show?
You know, I am not going to answer that, Ms. Clazy. And you were not going to support it, that's fine. But it is starting to get a little unfair in terms of this meeting and the time. I will not respond.
I asked you one question.
I will not
All you had to
respond.
do was say yes or no. You chose not to answer the question, instead avoid it, which is fine. That's your choice. But you need to understand something. Do not time me when many, many nights I have spent in that office and have listened to you go on for hours. So please do not question my time. I think I have every right to ask the questions I'm asking. I made myself very clear. I don't think the questions I'm asking are so horrible. I'm simply asking for details to all of this. And I think if they were provided, there wouldn't be a problem here. But the avoidance of providing it is a serious issue for me. But I'm not the one spending this money, and I'm not going to vote on it. I find this uncomfortable. I do. And I'm sorry, sir. If a photographer takes pictures and wants to be paid for it, and then eventually does get paid for it, you own those pictures. And when I say you, I mean the person who paid for it. Those pictures belong to us. We have no idea what that person did with those pictures. We have no idea, and we never will. We never will. I will ask you, when this is all done and over with, to see not only these videographers work, but I will ask you to see every picture. And I think I have the legal right to ask that question. I have the legal right to ask that. But you didn't answer my question, which says a heck of a lot more. I am sorry, Madam Chair. I am truly apologizing to you because I have taken up a lot of time. And I think we do need to move on, but may I move on to my next question?
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
On page 6 of 15, can somebody just quickly tell me what this Act 80 days involves? I'm a little confused as to why we're requesting it.
Mrs. Khaleesi, we're requesting this because you may recall the year of Snowmageddon. We didn't make up the days we missed. We asked for Act 80 days, which is under the school code allowable to make up missed days. Now, what we're asking for here are only Act 80 days for the seniors and high school because in order to meet their requirements in the terms of the number of days, that I believe we have one day that we're going to have to, 4 professional days, it says, in order to meet the required days for the seniors because of the fact that they're actually going to be leaving before the school year is over.
So did we use up all of the days that we have set aside for situations like snow days? Am I thinking about this?
I don't know if I totally heard it, but as you recall, we have used 2 snow days this year, and that made us short for them. Yeah, you can substitute professional days. It's kind of a strange law, really, but you can substitute professional days for school days, but you have to apply and ask permission. And in order to get that permission, we have to have the approval of you all.
And any days that we use outside of actual educational days, such as take a mail to school day, is that considered an education day?
Yes. School is in session, kids are there, yes, it's considered an educational day.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mrs. Shealy.
Is there anyone else with any comments, any other comments or questions on education? Mr. McCray?
Sorry, I missed the agenda. I just had more of a comment, I think, on number 2 with the kindergarten program. I noticed that it's all in like in the East End and the Central. Did the West End get kicked to the curb again, or were there just no buildings available?
We actually do have a location in the West End, Mr. McCray. It's PCA, Pittsburgh Classical Academy.
Sorry, I must have missed that. Under general authorizations, when we're buying new books, what do we do with the old books? Can we give them to the kids, or do we just have to turn them in or something? Or
For these, we're not replacing any books. They're actually novels that don't currently exist, and we'll be keeping the ones that do exist.
I thought we were replacing them. I'm sorry. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Brentley?
I do want to address quickly that there was a question or comment made about having the Take a Father to School Day in the beginning of the year. We originally wanted that, and we tried, but we were pushed back because they said it was the time when kids were getting settled and just getting in. And so they thought that that time was more educational and more important: new kids, new schools, new classes, new principals, new environment, and then here comes all the fathers. And so we pulled back from that. So it is not something that we never thought about or didn't try, but it was strongly suggested that we do it towards the end of the year. Students are winding down, and it would be less of a distraction, if any, to the schools and the administration. And so I wanted to put that out there as well.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes, on the report. I will be respectfully abstaining on page 5 of 15, number 9, the kaboom at Greenfield, until we can get some transparency and help our other schools. Thank you.
Mr. Khaleesi?
Report as a whole, I vote no on 1A, 1B, 4A, forgive me, I'm trying to make sure I'm not missing any of them that would have to do with Take Your Father to School Day. So, I'm sorry, and I am voting no, or I'm abstaining on number 20, since I did not participate in the suspension.
You're abstaining, Mrs. Khaleesi, on 20?
Pardon me?
You're abstaining on 20?
Yes.
Okay. Mrs. Fink?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I abstain on item 10, page 6.
Mrs. Zuda?
Yes, on the report as a whole, I abstain on 1A, 1B, and vote no on 4A.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes, on the report as a whole. I'll abstain on 1A, 1B, and 4A.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Mrs. Shealy?
Yes.
The report's approved. I'll give the tally. The report's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. We'll now move on to the committee report on business and finance. There were no items pulled for further discussion at agenda review. However, Mr. McCray asked that the LERTA plan be pulled for discussion, item number 43. But we'll begin with item 43 at this time.
Actually, I discussed it with Mr. Kumar, and I was okay with it. I misread something.
Okay? Mr. Brentley?
I have one quick general question. Mr. Joseph, can you just give me a figure again on the amount of dollars that will be going to minority contractors this month? And in simple terms, how many checks will you cut this month to pay minority contractors? You can generalize it. I didn't mean to surprise you, sir.
The total amount paid to minority contracts this month will be $797,245.
Thank you. And you will continue to engage minority contractors in all of our contracts, goods, and services?
That is correct.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mr. Sumter.
I just wanted to make a comment concerning item number 16. That's Pittsburgh Montessori Pre-K 8. There's work going on or scheduled for this building. Well aware of all the circumstances as to how this program arrived at that building. Understanding also the condition of the building is outlined in the DeYoung study that was presented to this board. Concern would be that if we were to proceed with work at this building, particularly a new sound system, that the portability of this system be considered just in case it were to be moved to another building. The same, I don't know if that could be done with the fire alarm system. The only question I would have there is that a inoperative system or just an upgrade or work for that system?
For the fire alarm system, it's a necessary upgrade. While we were doing the fire alarm upgrade, it's simultaneous work that will go on related to the sound system that was also needed in the building, and we're in the building. I'm not going to guarantee the portability once you're doing all this wired-in work. We have big challenges when we're moving sound systems. They don't move very easily.
I understand.
So I don't want to promise that when I don't.
Oh, no, I
can't-
wouldn't ask for any promise, but any consideration that could be given in that regard, to not offset a decision that would be made later, that if that program were to move or something happened to that building, that we'd have to close it down for whatever reason, that as much that could be salvaged could be, and it's the same as there's other buildings. Well, there's other buildings around the district that I see air conditioners sitting in the windows. I know we've absconded some of the camera equipment from some of the buildings, but just to keep that in mind so it's not a complete total loss if this board were to make a contrary decision. Thank you.
Mr. McCray?
On different items, is that all right? Okay. I'm on a different item. Okay.
Actually, then let me stay on number 16. Thank you, Mr. Kamar. Mr. Kamar and I had quite an exchange today about item number 16, and I appreciate the information you gave me, and I hope you understand that I just can't support this. There's no way I can. The DeYoung study, which I can't even remember what year it was done, but listed the Friendship Building as a building that needed major renovation to the tune of, at that estimate, $14.3 million. With the district and the state of the financial state that we are in, I personally can't justify spending whatever portion of this is all for the sound system. The fire alarm upgrades, I completely understand, are necessary, but the sound system to me is a nice to have. And so we couldn't distinguish what portion was that, but 211, let's say around $230,000 is a lot of money for a building that still needs $14 million in work. Mr. McCray.
Just a quick comment on item number 38. This is the B3 Solutions. It's a system, an automated police system, reporting system. This is tremendous. Again, in San Diego at the NSBA, I attended one of the conferences on security, and one of the biggest things they said was the more time that the officers have to spend with the children is better time spent, and this is going to give them that time. This is just going to kind of, so it's a paperwork thing, but it's tremendous, and I'm glad we're making this step in the right direction. Thank you.
Mr. McCray, you missed one. Number 41. The Conservancy is donating greenery to Pittsburgh Obama.
There was also another donation, but I watched the agenda review and I forgot. Usually Mr. Eisler picks up my slack.
I specifically wanted to call out that it's $26,000, approximate value of $26,000 of green space for a school that has a lot of concrete, and that's a really awesome donation. Are there any other comments or questions in the business agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
I abstain.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 16.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes on the report as a whole, no on item 16.
Report's approved.
Let's now move on to the report on personnel that is before you that includes addendums A, B, and C. Are there any questions on the personnel report at this time? Yeah, I'm going to call him Mrs. Khaleesi. Mrs. Khaleesi?
No, I have no comment.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Lane?
Yes, I have 2 memorials to read. Okay.
Thank you.
The first one, dear Board of Directors, it is with great sadness that I write to inform you of the death of Catherine Mueller Bogdan, teacher at Schiller and Roosevelt, Angela Abadia, Jody Guy, and Dr. Ronald Jones of the Pittsburgh Public Schools Arts Education Department, along with Mr. James Nath, principal of Pittsburgh Roosevelt, Ms. Paula Heinzman, principal of Pittsburgh Schiller, and their staff and students would like to pay the following tribute to Catherine's memory. We lost our dearest Catherine Mueller Bogdan of Beechview on Monday, March 25th, 2013. Catherine was a loving mother of Andrew Bogdan. Catherine was a loving mother of Andrew Bogdan and Emily Bogdan, and a much devoted sister to Edmund and Patricia. She so very much loved her special cat, Daisy. Catherine was a dedicated visual arts teacher to her students, and her love of teaching will truly be missed by all. Catherine will be remembered for the most for her ability to capture the beauty of the world through her paintings. We will greatly miss everything about our phenomenal teacher, friend, and peer. The second, it is with great sadness that I write to inform you of the death of William Bill Bodzak, middle school science teacher. Mr. Edward Littlehale, principal of Pittsburgh Mifflin, pre-K through 8, staff and students pay the following tribute to his memory. Bill was a highly respected, sensitive, and dedicated teacher that ignited enthusiasm for teaching and learning. Whenever Pittsburgh Mifflin had family fun night or an activity sponsored by our PTA, Bill was involved and helped to make the activity a success. Bill was a natural leader, committed to making Pittsburgh Mifflin a great place to work. He participated on our leadership team, RISE team, and Courageous Conversations. As an aspiring photographer, he had a knack for capturing those candid student moments that will remain for us for years to come as heartfelt memories. Bill recently began a new initiative by working with students to create and publish a student-driven newsletter. He shared his love of cooking, travel, gardening, and his pet dogs with our students and staff. We will greatly miss everything about our phenomenal teacher, friend, and peer.
Thank you, Dr. Lane. Are there any questions or comments on the report on personnel? Mr. Brentley.
Yes, Doctor, on addendum, are we voting on the addendums as well, correct?
Right.
Okay, addendum B, number 2. Now, these are recommendations, so these are public or will be public, I'm taking after this vote. These recommendations here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, public now. So I just want to mention for number 2 and a recommendation of changing a principal at Westinghouse. And Doctor, I just want to ask again, this stretches back to former administration, Superintendent Mark Roosevelt refused to meet with certain folks in the community. Actually, there was a vote that was put on this table that said he didn't have to meet with them. I am asking you, I do not have the time, but I'll find the time. Your job as the superintendent, in my opinion, we cannot make another bad decision here And I am asking you to reach out to the Westinghouse Alumni Association. Sit down with them. They have suggestions. They love the school. They love the community. I mean, there were some suggestions about the creation of an East End turnaround team. It's smart. Panel of 5 individuals who would focus on those schools, be your eyes and ears on the ground in the community. They just want to be a part and to be engaged. And I am asking in the strongest language, let's not ignore them or override them. You know Mr. Bridges, who is emotional and excited about Westinghouse, then let's use it to benefit the district. So if you set the meeting up, and if you truly reach out and truly open and allow them to participate in who would be best fit so that they can begin to turn that historic high school around, I will find the time to meet with you, with them, or in the community. And we have to get this one right. So I'm asking that you would consider that, reaching out to everybody. There's some wonderful people out there. We may have to think outside of the box and do something different, but we cannot exclude folks who want to help. We can't afford that anymore. Actually, you just can't afford it. So I'm asking you to do that for number 2. I will support your recommendations here, but please let's make it all inclusive. And some folks have a passion that's stronger than others, and they want to work with us. Well, let's put them out front, and let's really engage them and make this thing happen. So in my opinion, also, the final comment is that the reason why we have to do some different things and to include those we normally did not include, over the last 7 years or so, previous administration mostly, I believe that whole area has been victimized by experimental programs. And they're catching up, things are not fitting and it's not working, and we have a responsibility and an obligation to do for them the things that we're doing for SciTech, or the things that we're doing for Kappa, and how we bend over backwards and make sure that everything works and fits for them. And so I just want to say I'm available. I'll find the time. They want to be a part, and I think you'll be surprised when we open up and allow folks at the table and help, that you'll be surprised at some of the recommendations that they bring forward. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Khaleesi, I already asked you, didn't I? Okay. Anyone else with personal comments? Or Dr. Hall?
Yes, for item 2, and I'm going to mention the name. Am I allowed to mention it? It's on here now. Dr. Crenshaw will be going to the Pittsburgh Online Academy. I'm happy to hear that there will be someone going there that has some high school experience. I'm always very concerned about the amount of dropouts that we have in the school district. And I'm hoping that someone with some experience in secondary education will be able to get those secondary students in, keep them in, and get them graduated. I'm glad that this is coming before us. I will certainly work on helping anybody that goes to Westinghouse, but I'm really concerned about the dropout rate in the school district. And from what she'll be able to do with the online academy, I am hoping that other high schools will look to that program to support their program as well. So she may not be happy about one, but we'll work with her to make sure that she gets the things that she needs to make that program successful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. McCray?
I just want to recognize and thank our employees that are in the military for a job well done.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes, more of an observation, and it just is it's a very, I think, telling thing. We're notified when staff members die, and usually the last sentence is teachers and members of our staff are working with the children and families. And I think, Dr. Lane, when you read the two tributes, and they were two people who obviously were very entwined in the schools and an integral part of the children's lives. And I think, again, I thank our staff for the work they do every day and oftentimes goes unrecognized. But I think that final statement that comes out with a notification is our staff is working with the children and family is a really important one. And again, thanks to them for working on achievement and the lives of children every day. I wish our board would do a little bit more of that.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. I actually would like to make a comment about Addendum B, Part B, number 3. Congratulations, Mr. Joseph, in advance of the vote. Hopefully, you will be our next Chief Operations Officer, and we'll know really soon, because Mr. Weiss, can we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Yes.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Report's approved.
We will now move on to a transfer of funds that is before us this evening for board approval. Are there any questions or comments on the transfer of funds? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
No.
Mrs. Fink?
Yes.
Mrs. Zuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Report's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Please turn to the financial report of the controller. I'd like to call the board's attention to the financial statement, a report of the controller, both dated March 31st, 2013. Mr. Eisler.
Thank you, Ms. Shealy, and it's nice to be able to address a question to Mr. Joseph as opposed to I'm retiring on June 30th and I don't have to answer any of your questions, Mr. Camarda. You know, I say that with great affection, Mr. Camarda. Mr. Joseph, and again, I mean, I think this is a very, very important role of the board, and I do think that the public also needs to know where we stand financially every month. And we do have a 12-month roll forward in the year-to-date budget and actual comparisons. And again, I know that because of the reassessments, the tax bills went out late. I can never get you to give me the answers I really want because you always give me the answers that are there and are actual, and I do really appreciate that. But our revenues are down compared to year-to-date. I do understand that we're off 30 to 45 days. But do you anticipate any problems with revenues this year?
Well, we still have to see how the assessment appeals work out. The file is from the file that we used to pass our levy. It's still decreasing due to the pending appeals, so we still have to wait to see what the final result of those appeals are.
When do you think, and we're through the first quarter of our fiscal year, when do you think we are going to have a really good indication of how the reassessment has affected positively or negatively the revenues to this district?
I would hope by the end of the year, but some of these appeals can be very prolonged, and we may not know until well into 2014 the result of these appeals.
Forecasting is very difficult.
That is correct.
Given where the situation you've been put in.
Yes.
By the reassessment process. And again, I mean, I do think that what I get concerned about, because I know that you and Mr. Camarda delivered a surplus to this district last year, to which we are forever grateful. But with revenues down and expenditures up, are you concerned about the expenditures, or are these just expenditures that we're going to see in the first part of a fiscal year as opposed to the full 12 months?
Actually, compared to the 12-month roll forward, our expenditures are down compared to this point last year.
Right? That I do appreciate, but how about your budget?
Our budget in terms of our expenditures, well, it's our job to, as the budget department, to constantly monitor our expenditures, and we will do everything we possibly can to make sure that we beat our projections.
My last question, and thank you for your patience, Ms. Shealy. We are one of the unique school districts because our fiscal year does not follow the state's fiscal year, therefore we cross over 6 months in each one. And not knowing what the budget is going to be from the state, probably until another month or two, do you anticipate, given what the budget numbers are now before the House and Senate, that we're going to have trouble or going to have to reopen our budget?
Based on the budget that was proposed by the governor, I do not anticipate that we would have to reopen our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, and again, congratulations on this evening. Thank you, Ms. Shealy.
You're welcome, Mr. Eisler. Seeing no additional questions? There are no new business items before us this evening. Are there any items to be brought before the board at this time that require board approval? Dr. Holly?
Yes. I have been working on thinking about how we can utilize our education committee meetings or any committee meeting that's around education in using some of that time to identify some of our consultants that have been working in the district and have them come in and do a debrief on some of the work that they've done in our schools. We do a lot of outsourcing for typical work that's being done in schools in terms of evaluating teachers, supporting teachers, identifying working in different programs that are supposedly there to help parents as well and engage the community. So I would like to make a motion to the board that at a regularly scheduled education committee meeting of the Board of Directors of the Pittsburgh Public Schools, each consultant with a contract that may allow them to receive a total of $50,000 or more in the course of any 12-month period beginning in September 2011 or thereafter, whether or not the consultant has actually received such amount, shall appear in person before the board to summarize their goals, compensation, and achievement over the past 2 years or so to make themselves available for any questions board members may present. And also that a transcript of the presentations be provided to board members in electronic form. And finally, I'd like to see these meetings happen, these committee meetings happen during the months of May and June, will be set aside for this debriefing to the Board of Directors on their accomplishments.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
I do discussion now, right, Mr. Rice? Any discussion? Mr. Brentley?
Just a quick question, Doctor, these meetings will be public meetings, so the public will
Yes,
be available
absolutely.
to see. That's
Absolutely.
important. Thank you. That's all I need. That's important.
Mr. Eisler? Mrs. Khaleesi?
Thank you. Dr. Holly, I asked if you would be kind enough to talk to me about this prior to bringing it forward as a resolution, which I truly don't think you needed to do, but that's fine. What I do want to know is, why did you choose these dates?
I shouldn't have told him, I'm sorry, I didn't hear him. I chose the months of May and June to give the consultant a chance, because usually we do a lot of the that activity we identify the consultants during the months of August and September. I want to give them a chance to work through the year and then come at the end of the year to give us their information, their debriefing, do their debriefing.
If I may, I would like, and the reason why I wanted to speak to you about this is I would like to request that this time period is further back. If we could go back to, let's say, 2008 or 9.
Oh, Lord. Oh. Wow.
For all of them, I think you made that very clear. I think you made very clear that we don't have to ask for all of them. We could ask for what we feel is necessary or whatever board member would like to see or hear. But if you're willing to change that date back to at least 2009, I feel I can support this.
You want to answer that?
On your motion, which I'm not sure how that works anymore.
Dr. Holly would agree to make it 2009. I'm not saying you have to, but,
That's fine with me. That's
okay.
fine.
So,
Make a motion, Mr.
well,
Weiss.
you don't need a motion. She's agreed to make it 2009. I assume your second will remain, so and I don't pretend to have this motion down. We'll get it from the stenographer who has it down in fairly short order. But the date for the consultant's work then will be 2009 rather than the date stated by Dr. Holly in her motion. So when you vote, you're voting on a 2009 date.
Any other discussion? Mr. Eisler?
Yes, I shared very briefly with Dr. Holly at the beginning of the meeting. I mean, I would prefer that we try not to do protracted discussions at this meeting on proposed legislation. I think that's why we have committees and why we have agenda review. So that's one comment. The second comment is I want to be clear on this language because I think this is what we need to spend a little bit of time on. Each consultant with a contract that may allow them to receive a total of $50,000 or more in the course of any 12-month period beginning in September, now 2009 or thereafter, whether or not the consultant has actually received such amount, shall appear in person. That appear in person means that they have to come. Mr. Weiss, I have a question for you. If it is not spelled out in the contract that they signed, can we retroactively? I mean, we are demanding that they come. We're not asking. It says, shall appear. Can we do that retroactively in a contract?
We cannot force them to come. One would think that if they had any expectation of continued relationship, they would come, but the answer is no, we can't, but one would hope they would, and again, I would expect that they would come, given the nature of their work.
That's not the answer to my question.
Well, we cannot
I ask
force
a
them to-
simple
we
question,
cannot
like
force
Mr.
them to come.
Camarda, yes or no?
We cannot force
No.
them to come.
Right, I just want to be clear, thank you. I'm
But
not trying to be
doesn't
rude.
preclude asking them.
That's not what I'm getting at, Mr. Weiss. That's why I think it's very difficult to craft something like this on the floor. Because we can, I mean, what we're really talking about, I think, is probably a change in how we contract with consultants.
No, can I answer that?
Well, just let me finish, and then you can go. I mean, I cannot vote for something that is not enforceable. And this is, to me, given what Mr. Weiss said, an unenforceable resolution. Then I'd really like to know beyond and have an extended discussion, which I prefer not to do this evening. I would much rather do it within committee and agenda review to talk about why we need to do this and how we craft it, and whether or not even $50,000 is a limit. I mean, that's, to me, another arbitrary figure, and I'd like to know your thinking for it. But again, I am not prepared to discuss this evening. I do really want to know the reasons for you proposing this and how this can help us and how this can help student achievement. That's my biggest issue. And I think, I'm sorry, Dr. Holly, I'm not finished. As soon as I'm finished, I'll let you know. I would like to know all that and really get it to a point where it is crystal clear to us and to all of our consultants who we may be hiring what we're expecting of them. That's really what I'm getting at. And I do think that even given Mrs. Khaleesi's amendment of going back to '09, we could wordsmith this all night, but what I really am missing is a discussion among my fellow board members as to how we should do this and why. And I would much prefer to do that in committee. I'm now finished. Thank you, Mrs.
Okay, thank you. The reason for doing this is to be transparent and to understand exactly what the consultant has done. What you actually see is what the consultant will do. We never get a chance to actually talk to the people who are out in the field supporting students, parents, and community activities. I would like for the public to actually hear what the consultant did, what their strengths and weaknesses that they found in their activity with during the particular project. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. And I think that if people really want to do business with the school district, they will come back and they want to be a part of that process. They want to do a debriefing with the board. They want to do a debriefing with the public. We never get to see that or hear it. And that's my purpose in doing this.
Thank you. I don't disagree with anything you've said. It is the timing, it is the amount. I mean, I don't even know if it's a good amount. I mean, I would like to really see what the average contract is, the average length of time. And again, I don't know if we can retroactively do this. I'm getting from the solicitor that it would be a wish, it can't be a shall. Will be asked to. I mean, again, it is the language that I think we need to work on. I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I want to be very, very clear about that. It is a procedural issue of how I think we should be conducting business as a board and allowing this sort of discussion to happen, and they all happen in public meetings because we cannot do anything in private. We are governed by the Sunshine Act, so the transparency is demanded by the act of the legislature who controls what we do. So I'm all for it. I would just like to have the ability to do this in an extended period of time and not this evening, because I don't think that we have the time to do it. The other thing is I have this all the time with new agenda items, we revised our schedule so that we would allow the public to respond after our agenda review to any of the items. New agenda items do not allow the public to respond. So that cuts us a little bit on transparency, to be honest with you. And I cannot disagree with you on the richness of talking with consultants. On a number of times that I've been on this board, and I know in choosing reading curriculums and in choosing math curriculums, we spent an extended amount of time with consultants before and after, and it was very, very valuable. So I don't disagree. I'm not disagreeing with anything you're intending to do. It is really procedurally of how I would rather this board act. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eisler. Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I think what's important about this is, I know it was mentioned that concerned about the timing and the language and doing it here, right here at the table. No, the most important thing is the intent. We give millions. Mr. Joseph, I'm going to ask you in another minute or so to give me a general ballpark figure of the amount of contracts we gave out last year in the consultant contracts. I'll call on you in a couple of seconds as soon as I make my other comments. But we give millions out, and we can walk down this hall and bump into someone who has a $1.5 million. In some cases, they don't speak. I can't identify them. I don't know what the scope of services are. And in some cases, remember a couple of years ago, we had that ridiculous thing in some of these contracts that had an automatic renewal. So they didn't even have to come back and go through this process. It just kicked in. It was in communications and marketing. It automatically gave them another amount of money to work with. And so when you're a board member and you cannot identify and know where the dollars are and can say, oh, I know that's John Doe Consultant, He's the one that's looking at the study of our buildings. When we can't identify them, it's a disservice. It's simply a disservice to the community. I supported Dr. Holly, but more importantly, I think the public will appreciate it, because the publics are the ones that brings a lot of things to our attention. Hey, why did you spend X amount of money for this? Oh, we did. And so it simply provides an opportunity for folks to come together. And really, if you look at the back of the tab that we get, there's a section that requires an evaluation. That can be considered a part of their evaluation. It would be strongly suggested for that consultant to come at the end of his or her contract and say, here's my scope of service, this is what I was charged to do, here are my accomplishments, and yes, I need another year to complete it. That's clean, and that's honest, and that allows the public an opportunity to say, hey, you know, I feel you. I see where you're going, I'm with you. And so we cannot, you know, be confused that because it's being introduced here and it's not introduced in committee that it doesn't have any worth. The point is that it's a very important first step. Mr. Joseph, can you give me a general figure of what did we spend last night? And I know it's funny because we spent so much money. And I can wrap that. Go ahead.
Mr. Brantley, I don't have the figure handy, but I can provide that to you at a later time.
Oh, man, you blew it. Okay. Okay. But it is safe to say, Mr. Joseph, but hundreds of thousands of dollars. Millions of dollars. I'm trying to be nice. It is safe to say that. Would that be correct in saying that?
I'll provide you with that number.
Okay. Well, he's being very conservative. But we do know what is being spent here. So I would hope that we would just vote on it so we can move forward. It will not create any harm to anyone. It is a great suggestion, Doc. I got to tell you, I've been here for 14 years. Never thought about that, about having someone to come and show us, how did you spend our money? And what are you doing with the money? How long have you been in business, et cetera, et cetera? Thank you.
I think I'll take a different take on, I think what Mr. Eisler was trying to say. It's not the idea or the thought of doing this, it's that these thresholds have not been discussed amongst us. Like $50,000 is 1/1000th of our annual budget. That is insignificant. I'm not sure that that's the threshold that is appropriate for us to have every $50,000 contract come in. That's what this says. Every $50,000 consultant or contracted service come in and talk to us. It also says that we have to set aside the month of May. May starts in 8 days. That's not appropriate to ask anybody to come in. It also doesn't address the retroactive issue about people who have contracts in the past. Who's picking up their travel if they're not local? I guess, and that's his point. It's just to be able to discuss it in committee and have these questions addressed so that a vote is more certain when you make it. Mr. Eisler.
Ms. Shilley, I want to be clear. I never, ever, ever questioned intent. I questioned process.
Thank you, Ms. Shilley. It's refreshing to see an item come before us that points to accountability, and that's what this board is charged with, holding the district accountable for achieving the things that we set forth in policy and in goals, beliefs, and commitments. However, the legislative table is not the place necessarily to craft the policy, because if you're going to do it right, you need to take your time and do it. I'm not in any disagreement with the intent of this motion. There's two concerns that I would have. One is, logistically, how many consultants would this produce if they all were willing to come before us? And time-wise, could we fit them in May and June? And would we have time to do other things? We could take the time. Our meetings would be longer, per se, but we don't know that at this point. But still, that's that's a lesser issue. But then it's one of those things that if you don't know on the front end, you might be surprised on the back end, because if this were to pass, then you could research and find out how many consultants fit in this category and how many could make it for the meetings. The biggest concern I had was, not even biggest concern, is when it says that a transcript. Now, my understanding in discussing this prior to coming in the room, that transcript of the presentations be provided to the board members in electronic format, and that would dictate the means by which that, as long as these comments are recorded in some fashion and put down and kept for record, that other board members could see if they were to make a meeting or not make a meeting, but it does not specifically say that we have to have a court stenographer or a stenographer at every one of those meetings, because that would drive up the cost of that process. So the big concern to me is the logistics, how many meetings, and keeping the cost down but still achieving the same purpose. As long as we can have the information provided to us electronically, that it does not dictate the specific means for that. But again, this is a start, or at least should be coupled with other activities or motions, not necessarily motions, but requests that this board makes to determine the accountability of what we're passing and the accountability of all the things that we vote on. Some feedback on what we talk about is healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. Any other? Mrs. Azuda?
I'm a little concerned also with the process, because it says over the past 2 years, and make themselves available for any questions board members may present. And I think there's quite a few consultants, and if we don't cap that time frame, we will start at the May education meeting and be still listening and talking and questioning into the June education committee meeting. So I think there has to be some kind of cap on the time or something.
Mr. McCray?
I agree with everyone else. This is a great concept, but we do need to discuss it a little more. For example, are we using just the contracts under the 01 funding, or are we using contracts from or grant funding? Different things like that we need to work on, and I'd like to have more time to work it out. Thank you.
Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I just want to make it very clear to our viewing public, this obviously strikes a nerve here. When we're simply trying to hold some accountable, instead of us saying, let's go with this and make it something that we adjust and move forward, to just discount it and not support it as one that's not a good thing for the public. It's also interesting, too, that we can all now raise the questions about process. And it was just last month, we had a questionable process, and no one questioned that. Actually, they voted for it. When we accepted the contract for the superintendent, we accepted to accept the letter of resignation. There was no letter of resignation within our book, not before us, not really able to vote on it. That is a questionable process, but no one raised a question about the process. And so it makes it difficult when we say you got a process issue here, but no one's concerned when it's over there. Somehow, some way, we've got to find a way to share this with the public. It's just that because it's too much money. It's too much money. Now, we can shoot this down, and then we can put it in committee and let it suffer in committee for a while, but we continue to give out contracts. And so we continue to move the process forward. So somehow, some way, we got to put something in place to be accountable to the public, but more importantly, to be accountable to ourselves. Most of us, including myself, don't know the contractors. And very few of us can point to what their roles or what their responsibilities were, and we are still spending. It is a good thing. It is a very good first step, but you can clearly see where we're going with it in terms of how we can find other reasons and say, let's work with it. Let's put it forward, and then if we have to tweak it, we tweak it. We are the board. We have that power. So it's not like it's a big ticket item, it's gonna cost anything. It's an option, we can put it out there, we can simply say, here it is, here are the consultants, and we can pick and choose. I mean, I have concerns about going all the way back, 2009 or 2000, but I'll support that, because I believe you gotta start somewhere, and if another colleague wants to go back and to get information on a consultant, bring them in, I support it, because we have that right to make sure that we're spending the public's dollars correctly.
I want to be clear that, and let me just tell you, last Friday, I was at a mayoral forum, and one of the candidates said that he did the budgets for the school district was $589 million, and the city's budget was $430 million. He couldn't understand why we were having all of these children not graduating from high school, and because they have all this money, and then this city doesn't. I mean, it just went on and on and on. And of course, there were only 2 board members there, and I'm sitting up front, and of course, everybody's looking at me like I got the money in my pocket.
Just to help you when you're out there again, remind those candidates of all the authorities that the city has, that they don't count those in their general operating budget. So just for one example, the Pittsburgh Water and Sewer Authority, that doesn't show up anywhere as their general operating budget. So when you're with a candidate and someone's mentioning theirs against ours, ask them to do an all-in number.
Okay, I wasn't going to do that then. I was the only one sitting there, and I'm not Mr. Joseph, okay? So, with a calculator. But, it made me feel a little intimidated, and I don't get intimidated easily, but it got me a little intimidated as to it's not how we are spending our money, but we can tell the public how we're spending our money, and this is what we're doing it on. What I wanted to ask you, Mr. Camardo or Mr. Joseph, does that $589 million include all of the grant money that we get as well?
When someone's giving you that kind of number, they're counting, that's all of our expenditures. So they looked at what all our expenditures from foundations, from the federal and state government, with our general fund also.
Okay, so that would include everything, thank you. And it's a large sum of money, and the audience went, ooh, ah. We want to make sure that they understand how we're spending it. But what are the outcomes after we've spent these large sums of money on contractors, people that are not really a part of the school district, but people that we entrust to come in and support our students? That's the only reason why I'm asking for this particular item. And I'm going to tell you, if you voted down today, I'll be back next month with, oh, I can't? Oh, no. Then I'll change it and make it into something else.
That's the only way we can bring it back.
Oh, and I will. It'll keep coming if I have to make it into various forms, and I know how to do that. So, I will do it. So, thank you.
Again, Dr. Holly, I support the intent. I think we need to craft it. I do not believe that you start with bad legislation and then improve it. I think you get good legislation which covers I didn't say it was. I made a general comment, Mr. Brentley. Okay, can I have the floor? Okay, can I have the floor? I never said, did I say it was bad? Did I say it was bad? No.
May I please?
No, I
May I
didn't.
please?
I have the
May I
floor.
please?
Thank you. You're very kind. I let you talk. Questions are asked tonight about contractual amounts. I'd like to have that before us. We don't have it. I'd like to know the history. I'd like to have it spelled out.
I'm confused about the history, though, Mr.
Can we
Yeah,
please do this in an
I
orderly
do
manner?
I do think, when I talk about the history, how can we ask people retroactively? Okay, that's history. And I think, and the meetings are all public, I think the public should come out and should participate and should be able to comment. So I would like to see us really sit as a board and work this out. Because again, I am not questioning intent. It is the details of what this is going to entail and really give us in the end. That's what we need to know. That's what I think people want. But I'm not going to try to predict what people want. I am not a seer or a fortune teller.
Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Khaleesi?
Are we voting on this with
Yes.
the date being 2009?
We're voting on it with 2009.
Yes.
Mrs. Fink has left. Mrs. Azuda?
No.
Dr. Hawley?
Yes.
Mr. Eisler?
No.
Mr. McCray?
No.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
No.
It's a 4-4 vote, so the motion fails.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Are there any other items that need to come before this board that require a board vote?
I
Yeah.
did have a resolution I wanted to bring forward, but given the fact that, I talked too long, I will bring it forward next month. I will make sure that I provide everybody with adequate time and information to do so. I wish all of you a good night because I cannot stay on the phone any longer. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye, Mrs. Khaleesi. Are there any other, actually, I would like to start the, I saw no other legislative items. I would actually like to start the announcements by reading a memorial for a former employee. In memory of Leonard Kubiak. I regret to inform you of the death of Leonard Kubiak, retired principal of the former Peabody High School, on April 6, 2013 at West Penn Hospital. He was 85. Mr. Kubiak earned his bachelor's degree from Duquesne University. His talent on the football field as a star quarterback attracted the attention of the Green Bay Packers, who tried to recruit him in 1951, but instead Mr. Kubiak joined the Marines. He later earned his master's in education from West Virginia University. Mr. Kubiak joined the district as a teacher at Westinghouse in 1956. In 1961, he transferred to Peabody, eventually becoming their activities director and later vice principal. He was named principal in 1973 and remained at Peabody until his retirement in 1988 after 32 years of service to Pittsburgh Public Schools. Staff remember him fondly for his leadership, friendship, and love of his students. Mr. Kubiak is survived by his wife Dolores, also a former PPS educator, his sons Leonard Jr. and Michael, as well as his 3 siblings, Gerald, Richard, and Dolores Baldwin of Erie, and 4 grandchildren. We extend our deepest sympathy to his family and friends. Are there any other announcements that need to be made tonight? Mr. Brentley?
Yes, I have a few. I'm going to go very fast with them. First, I just wanted to send out a thank you to the New Pittsburgh Courier, who last week included the Take a Father to School Day on the front page of their newspaper. So I want to say thank you very much to them. Secondly, I do have the Magna Award magazine, and as I mentioned, you will see Pittsburgh is represented in the judging section here. So I do have that available for anyone who's interested in seeing it. Number 3, Dr. Lane, I've been suggesting some things to you for the Pittsburgh Public Schools highlight DVD. And here's another item. A former Pittsburgh Public Schools student, basketball star, Westinghouse, Pepper Wilson, my understanding has recently been drafted in the WNBA. I'm not a basketball player. It's homegirl, respectfully, out of Westinghouse. And so I'm asking, Doctor, if you would have someone to contact her, her agent, or her coach. We need to get her here and not only recognize her, but we need to do the first official retiring of her jersey. It is my understanding she is the first woman of the Pittsburgh Public Schools to make it on the national level. And I'm not ignoring the men. We have quite a few men who played professional ball, but it is my understanding, and I hope some historian is watching who can correct me, but this is the first woman who put Pittsburgh on the national spotlight. And so if we can and have a symbolic 5-minute retiring of her jersey from out of Westinghouse, I think we need to do it before all the national media folks get to her. The final thing I wanted to mention is sometimes, and we just completed it earlier this meeting, when we recognize these students, I've been here for 14 years, so that means I congratulated almost thousands of students every month. But there was one that I congratulated. I just want to make a mention to her. A young girl, and this was in November of 2005, and her name was Danielle Hardy. This is what our staff read while we recognized her. Our final award winner for the evening was Danielle Hardy of Alderdice High School. Danielle is being honored for representing Pennsylvania as a national scholar at the 2005 National Young Leaders Conference in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the Congressional Youth Leadership Council. The National Youth Leaders Conference gives high-achieving sophomores, juniors, and seniors an opportunity to meet with cabinet secretaries, members of Congress, diplomats, lobbyists, journalists, academics, okay, for a first-hand look at our government at work. NYLC accepts high school sophomores, juniors, and seniors who meet the highest criteria, academics, and leadership. That young lady was here, and she walked across, and I shook her hand. Here we are years later, in 3 days, my son will ask for her hand in marriage. And I just thought that that was so unique. And so Danielle L. Hardy will be marrying my son, and who we also recognized here in 2006 for the first Pittsburgh Public Schools quarterback to throw for over 2,000 yards, for 4,000 yards in 2 seasons. And so I just thought that was really unique. It also puts me back to, we just never know who we touch, and we never know what's happening and how some of these students will come back to us. So in less than 4 days, they will be getting married, and my wife and I are just excited, but my wife is really concerned because she's extremely attached to her boys, and she just said that it feels like she's losing a son. And so I encouraged her to kind of look at it a little differently. And I encourage her to look at it this way. We have 5 children. That's 1, okay? And we're going to continue to move on and wish the best for the rest of them. So I wanted to say that publicly, to say that a special thank you to all of the educators in the Pittsburgh Public Schools. As the old saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, my wife and I can stand and take credit for getting this one over the line, but there were a lot of educators in this district who helped guide both of them to where they are. Danielle, I believe, was a 2005 graduate of Alderdice. Desmond, my son, Desmond Brentley, was a 2006 graduate, I believe, at Perry. And he went on to graduate from Robert Morris. She went on to graduate from Virginia Tech. And so I just wanted to mention that I thought that was really kind of unique, and we wish them well. They did ask for a little advice from me, and I just shared some advice with him, but you'll have to listen to 1410 KQV to hear my advice to him, and it comes on every Saturday at 9:30. Thank you very much. It's Saturday, this Saturday
Thank you, Mr.
at
Brentley.
9:30 a.m. Thank you. Yeah, it's a commercial. Hey, they got a lot of free press tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Brentley. Mrs. Azuda?
Since Pepper's name came up, I just want to say that while she was playing basketball in Miami, there was a doctor sitting on the sidelines taking care of her, and that's Dr. Bryson Lesniak, who is a graduate, I don't know what year, of Shenley High School. So while it's cool that she's on the national forefront for playing basketball, we have an orthopedic surgeon, and that's what we're in the business of educating. So pretty proud of Bryson. That's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Azuda. Dr. Holly?
Yes. I want to say congratulations to Dr. Cynthia Zurchin. She is a former principal with the Pittsburgh Public Schools, spent all of her educational career with us till the last few years. She has been the assistant superintendent at the Moon area school district. She is now the superintendent as of July 1st. She will take over Ambridge area school district. So I thought it would be a nice gesture for the our school district to know that she has moved on and she's doing fabulous things. She did fabulously at Moon. She is now going to be at Ambridge, and Ambridge is going to have a great superintendent. I'm excited for her and for the Ambridge community.
Thank you, Dr. Holly. Mr. McCray?
I agree with you. She's a great person. I had the pleasure of being a presenter at the National School Boards Conference in San Diego. And as part of my report on my trip, I will include my presentation for the board and whoever else wants to look at it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. McCray. Mr. Iser?
I too congratulate Cynthia. I worked with her on a number of occasions when she was at Schaefer. And it's great to see principals move on to bigger and better things. I think she is a really good educator. Also did work with her when she was at Beachview, so she had a real history here, and it's great to see people move up. Thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Iser. Mr. Sumter?
Invest in our children's future. Give to the Pittsburgh Promise.
Thank you, Mr. Sumter. May I have a motion, please?
Second.
You get it? That was Mr. McCray and Mr. Sumter. This meeting is adjourned. We will, wait, where am I? I'd like to call to order the April 24th, 2013 meeting of the Pittsburgh Mount Oliver Intermediate Unit. Mr. Weiss, may we please have a roll call?
Here.
Present.
Here.
Present.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Thank you. Would board members please turn to the minutes from last month? Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions?
Move to approve.
Eisler, McCray. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved. Please turn to the committee report on education. Are there any questions or comments at this time? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we please have a roll call?
Yes.
Brentley's ahead of the curve here. Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
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 Sumter?
Yes.
Yes.
Fourth approved, 7 yes. It's a 7 yes.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Can we please move to the committee report on business that is before us submitted by Mr. McCray and his committee? Are there any questions on the report that were not addressed at agenda review? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we please have a roll call?
Mr. Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly? Mr. Eisler?
Yes.
McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Report's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Please move to turn to the personnel report that is before you. Are there any questions on the personnel report? Seeing none, Mr. Weiss, may we have a roll call?
Brentley?
Yes.
Mrs. Azuda?
Yes.
Dr. Holly? Yes. Mr. Eisler? Yes. Mr. McCray?
Yes.
Mr. Sumter?
Yes.
Ms. Shealy?
Yes.
Board's approved.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. I'd just like to call everyone's attention to the financial statements and travel expense reports that are before you. Are there any other items that are to be brought before the board at this time?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Ice or Sumter? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. This meeting is adjourned.